Yeah. One time for your mind, two time for your drink. Ladies and gentlemen, it's another episode of Nightcap Knowledge. We have a very special guest tonight. We'll be here with Warren Jones, epidemiologist Warren Jones, good brother Warren Jones. And we're talking men's health, black men's health. We got a lot of announcements to make. It's also election day in Mississippi. A lot of municipal elections are taking place or having votes are being counted at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Nightcap Knowledge. Let's go. Check 1 2, check 1 2. Microphone check 1 2. Yeah. All right. Let's fade that on down a little bit. Fade it on down. There we go. There we go. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Nightcap Knowledge. My name is George Chuck Patterson. Some people know me as DJ George Chuck. Some people know me as Dad. Some people know me as Uncle Chuck. Yep. Shout out to nephew, niece. My niece is headed to orientation, or has been a part of orientation at the University of Georgia. My nephew MJ is balling out at the Future Stars All-Star game here in South Mississippi. My boy played shortstop, second base, everywhere in the outfield. And of course, I had to leave a little early so we could get here for Nightcap Knowledge. Got a very, very important person that will be joining us tonight. Warren Jones, Master of Public Health, future Dr. Warren Jones, epidemiologist. We're talking men's health, Black men's health specifically. And we have been talking about this for quite some time, the Black Men's Health Equity Conference. Warren will tell us more about this conference. It's all going down Saturday, August 23rd at Jackson State University. Roland Martin, as you see, is the keynote speaker. And I love Roland Martin's his broadcast that he does via Twitter, YouTube. It's a simulcast. It's kind of like what we do here at Black with No Chaser, but definitely on a very, very large level. He has a round table of folks, and I can't wait to see him in person. So make sure that you go to the Institute for the Advancement of Minority Health website. We actually have the link for that tagged in the description of this video. So as you are watching this, please share this live and that link with a Black man that you care about. Now, as we are continuing to pay the bills, we got to give a shout out to Everyday Tech. You can catch Everyday Tech Mondays on Mississippi Public Broadcasting at 10 a.m. And then you can go to mpbonline.org/Everyday Tech. Shout out to our partner, Sabir, who is a regular. I think he's one of the hosts of Everyday Tech. And he is your extraordinary business solution. Everything that you need, you can holler at Sabir. Now, Ascend Aerial Camp, the ultimate aerial and tech camp for girls. We had them on last week. Absolutely outstanding combination of things, man. You got fitness and tech, a wonderful combination. So definitely want to invite you to check out that episode. You can find it on YouTube or Facebook. Now, back to the topic at hand tonight. Black Men's Health with epidemiologist Warren Jones. Warren Jones is here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me give him some applause. The good brother. That man, he's got some awards. I shared a couple of those things on Facebook earlier. Being recognized by your community, by your family is a wonderful thing. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a wonderful person here. Future Dr. Warren Jones. What's up, Q?
For sure, man. Good evening, man. Happy to be here, man. And thank you again for that. Like I said, it was a really great acknowledgement, man. We do the work, very with a ton of humility and, never really looking for awards. But nonetheless, when the community recognizes you, it's it's a proud moment. So, was able to be awarded with some other brothers that I've worked with and went to school with. So was just happy to be a part of that cohort of brothers, man. Just honored and humbled to be a part of that.
No, that's what's up. That's what's up. So, Doc, what's been going on with you? What's going on? Personally, what you listening to? Tell me that. What you listening to?
Oh man, I've been I'm from the West Coast. So a lot of Kendrick, man. Definitely got the GNX album on repeat right now. A lot of Dom Kennedy, stuff like that. So a lot of West Coast stuff. Nipsey Hussle, Tupac. When I'm kind of in work mode, that's kind of what I lean on. Those artists really kind of speak to what I'm, the focus that I have with kind of understanding my timeline. Nipsey Hussle always talked about it's a marathon. You may not get there at the same pace as everyone else, but nonetheless you'll get there. So sometime, you got to take the stairs sometimes. So really just pacing myself, man. It's dissertation time, so just one more year, one more calendar year for to get that PhD, man. And it's just really surreal to even be this close to it. So just really excited about that. Of course we're always busy at the institute. With our programs and doing a lot of work in the Mississippi Delta region with the students and doing a lot of health screenings at the barbershops there and locally here in Jackson. So
Yeah.
just staying busy, just staying working, man. And yeah, like I say, man, my playlist, my end of the year Spotify joint is always like, filled with, that West Coast sound. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
always West Coasting for sure.
Yeah. Nah, that's what's up. I have a good bit of West Coast in my playlist.
Yeah,
And I can say that I have an eclectic taste for music. Sometimes it might be especially at the ball field, we got country, we got some of everything
yeah,
on our playlist. Um, but one of the things that I keep in heavy rotation, um, I would say is a few motivational tracks, like from
yeah.
E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher.
Hmm.
Damon John is another one of
Got you.
my motivational joints. I got like a little playlist called Motivation, and one of the tracks on there think it's a game.
Got you.
And
Got
yeah,
you.
yeah. So between I listen to a lot of podcasts now. As I am a podcaster, I do consume more of the content or the artistry of conversation.
Got you.
But man, I love me a good cookout mix.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, yeah, I love me
Definitely.
a good cookout mix. So, Doc, tell me about the newest event that you mentioned most recently. I know that y'all have been doing things at barbershops, but it was something else that Mac mentioned that you guys are is it the man cave? Is that what?
We did the pre-conference. Of course, this week is the Healthy Mississippi Conference.
Yeah.
It's being held over at the Sheraton Refuge Center over in Flowood. So we did that event last night, man. Incredible event. It was put on by the Jackson Heart Study Community Engagement Center. Of
Okay.
course, I'm a Jackson Heart Study scholar as well. And USM and the Mississippi State Department of Health were the collaborators on that. So they reached out to us. Of course, we work. Of course, I help run our men's health program with the institute. So they reached out and wanted us to help them put it together, and so was able to put together a great roster of speakers and presenters.
Yeah.
Um, and man, the event was incredible, man. Very powerful conversations, just all men in the room. Very, very good turnout. So, the conversations range from, the youth and, some of the, hypersexuality in the music and, fatherhood and heart health and mental health and all
Yeah.
these different realms, man. But it was just really this unfiltered conversation. The brothers were extremely engaged, and like I said, man, the presenters we had were just top notch, man. Had folks that specialize in urology, cardiology, mental health professionals. We even had Coach Really came through, gave a really, really, really powerful word just around, engaging young men and of course, he's a football coach, so he kind of brought that football coach energy.
Yeah.
But like I said, man, we had really the who's who, man, in the Jackson and Mississippi area. Even had some survivors from heart disease. So one brother shared his testimony. It's actually is a Q. His name is escaping me. He's Ada chapter. But he shared his story about how he was having some issues, some heart issues, and basically was having, his heart was failing him. At one
Hmm.
point during his testimony, he just talked about how he was literally dying at one point. He had, very high temperatures. He said at one point during his journey, his wife had to keep like the air conditioner on like 55, 60 degrees, um,
Overheating.
overheating.
Yeah.
And he said he was having some heart issues, and his primary care provider at the time was just giving he was taking the wrong medication. So he
Mm.
really talked about the importance of not being afraid to seek a second opinion. Some of the of course Dr. Turner was there as well. He was just
Shout out to Dr.
recently,
Turner.
yeah, so Dr. Turner was there, and he told a story about one evening as he was going, trying to going through the process of trying to get this second opinion and going through, getting a change in medication, that Dr. Turner actually made a house call, came the middle of the night one night, 10, 11 o'clock at night, to the
Yeah.
man's house to bring him his medication. Just really speaks to the dedication, man, of just how much the brothers in his state, man, care about folks. And so he shared about, he ended up, a young man ended up passing away. He ended up finding another um, care provider in Texas, Houston specifically. A young man ended up passing away. They went to the young man's mother and asked would she be okay with donating his organs. One of the organs, of course, that was donated was his heart,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a match for him. So he ended up
Man.
getting the heart transplant, and he said within 7 days of getting this new heart, he walked a mile and a half, man, and he just talked about his journey back and how he's been able to live a healthy life since then. So,
Yeah.
it was just that's what type of evening it was, man. Just very candid, open conversations, and really, really great way to kick off the week. So tomorrow, actually, I'll be presenting on. Of course, I work closely with our tobacco prevention program as well.
Okay.
And tomorrow I'll be presenting on youth brain development, nicotine and vaping addiction. So I'll be
Mm.
I'll be presenting on the way the brain develops. As you know, or as you may or may not know, when the human brain is developing, it develops from back to front. So the
Okay.
last part of the brain to develop, of course, is the frontal lobe, which contains the prefrontal cortex,
Right.
and that's the part of the brain that controls reasoning and decision making.
Ah.
Up to that point, and our brains don't fully develop until we're age 25. So
Right.
up to
Right.
25, it's still developing. And if when a kid or a child is throwing a temper tantrum, or teenagers participating in risky behaviors, because
Yeah.
at that point in time, because that part of the brain is still developing, a lot of the decisions are made with the amygdala, which is um, um, the emotional part of the brain. So that part is fully developed before the prefrontal cortex is. And so I'll just be presenting on, the different ingredients that are in some of these vaping products, and of course they contain, toxic chemicals like lead and things like that. So these chemicals could lead to juvenile delinquency and issues with social connection and focus and discipline and things of that nature. And so, I just being a natural researcher, just when I'm looking at a lot of the crime that's amongst male youth, specifically black male youth, um, I wonder how many brothers are doing time, or, you know, have be, in the juvenile system,
Yeah.
due to just lead exposure,
Lead
and
exposure. Uh, Lead exposure on top of an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex that, like you saying,
mhm,
like all of your decision making capacity is here, and you've been under the influence of these foreign substances,
yeah,
uh like literally chemicals, for the better part of your teens,
yeah,
and
for
you
sure,
wondering why you crashing out and doing things and experimenting in things that are, as you put it, risky.
for sure,
um
for sure.
so one of the things that when you said the brain doesn't fully develop until 25, um there are researchers that mention that stat as it relates to the relationship between police and community.
Mhm.
And the reason why they mention that, and I think it's important for the point that you were making about people ending up in jail.
Yeah,
Um, the flip side of it is you have a lot of officers
mhm.
that become police officers before they're 25.
Mm, interesting.
So now technically you have people in development policing people in development.
Yeah.
And everybody is now responsible for making life-changing decisions
Hmm.
in split moments. So now,
Definitely.
what does that look like? Yeah, you're supposed to have, your, field training officers. Appreciate you, Otis, for tapping in with us tonight. Um, we there's a need for mentoring, and then what you're doing with the Black Men's Health Equity Council. And did I get the name right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. I think the rooms that you are creating and curating around the topic of health as it relates to Black men, it allows for those horror and success stories
Hmm.
to be shared so that somebody can learn, somebody can see a sermon rather than
Definitely.
just see it and hear it.
Hmm.
So, Doc, tell me how you arrived at your life's passion of public health and epidemiology, and then we can get into some of that health equity conference stuff.
For sure. As you met me as a freshman at Tougaloo College.
It's true.
Um, and so up until that time, when I first got to Tougaloo, when I enrolled, I actually was an education major initially, specifically economics. I was thinking, economics teacher, high school teacher. I did a lot of work with our business academy in high school. My mentor in high school, the brother who actually told me about Tougaloo. Um, his one of his mentors is Betty Parker Smith. Of course, she's the former provost
Right.
at Tougaloo, and so they got together. He told her about me, and said, "Hey, this young man, may not be alive next year if he's still running around in South Central
Yeah.
and Compton." So just just wasn't, I was kind of on that path that we talked about, it being a young youth, and they told me, hey, I actually met, shout out to Steve Smith. Of course, he was over recruitment at that time. They did a recruitment trip to Crenshaw High School. Got a chance to meet him, and initially I didn't make it took me a while to actually say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go. Like when they
Yeah.
first met with me, I was like, man, I've never been to Mississippi. I don't know anything about the South. And one thing I always tell folks, like when you living in LA,
Hmm.
it's something about LA. It just makes you. It's like you kind of think LA is like the whole world. It's such a, it's one of the largest cities, um, on the planet, and one of the most major cities that you kind of think is the center of everything, right?
Yeah.
And so I just couldn't imagine like leaving LA, even though wasn't living in like the best conditions or the best neighborhoods. Um, and so when I did, decide to take the opportunity, it took for a couple of, a series of other events to take place. Um, and I decided, hey, I don't know if God is going to grant me I've got a second and third chance here. know?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
thinking if I get shot at one more time, I don't know. I don't know if I'll still be here. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I just said, man, let me go ahead and take this opportunity. Ended up meeting Terrence Green, as we call him Trey.
Yeah.
Met him, and it just really meeting him just really made it feel like this was divine. This is God working for me to meet this other young man who's also from the same community, on the same path, and trying to get it together. So he ended up becoming my right hand man. And it was times during that freshman year where I was like, man, I'm about to pack up and go back. But I always tell people, man, I credit him for keeping me on track. Like he was like, man, we not giving up. You got to kill Trey. Trey, you got to kill him for him to to give up anything. You know,
Yeah.
his mind power and his dedication, man.
No, that's awesome.
He's just a really awesome friend, man, and a brother. And he really kept me grounded. And so I went through my matriculation at Tougaloo, but it wasn't until I met Dr. Wendy White.
Okay.
Shout out to Dr. White. Of course, she runs the undergraduate and training education center for the Jackson Heart Study at Tougaloo.
Right.
And so, of course, I was a sociology major, and sociology is so broad. I didn't know what I was going to do. After I graduated, I was in my last year at Tougaloo, and I took an intro to epidemiology course with Dr. White. I had
Yeah.
already taken
Through
like
Jackson Heart Study.
through the
That's one of
Jackson Heart
those.
Study,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so my GPA wasn't good enough at that time in undergrad to get into the Jackson Heart Study, but I ended up getting in grad school. But I met Dr. White, and she I did extremely well in her class, and she came to me one day and was like, I think you would be a great public health practitioner. Like you really
Yeah.
seem to have you're great at statistics. All of assignments that were, I always, did really good in those courses. I took intro, and I took applied statistics at Tougaloo, did really well.
Yeah.
And she said, with the combination of that, your lay summaries are incredible. You seem to be able to really have an act for disseminating complex medical terminology to laypersons and being able to communicate that. And she really is. I credit her for introducing me to this field, man. And so once I took that course, I graduated, and she recommended that I applied for the Jackson Heart Study, that I, look at, attending Jackson State. So I went back to LA for about a year and a half after
Yeah.
I graduated from Tougaloo. I joined a community organizing fellowship with now she wasn't the mayor then, but Congresswoman Karen Bass, now Mayor Karen Bass of LA, worked really closely with her. And again, when I was in that organizing fellowship, and this is again, I just I believe in God, man, and it just seemed
Yes.
like, yeah, I was just constantly being placed in these positions where it was just really clear to me that what my calling was. But in that fellowship, I learned about her background. And
Okay.
and though I knew about like the crack epidemic of the 1980s and how that
Yeah.
affected, LA and all of that, when she shared her story about her being a ER nurse and working in the maternity ward, and her start, even though she's in politics now, her start was in the medical field. And she talked about she would see all of these babies, all of these, crack babies, these babies that were being born with drugs in their system. And that's what sparked her to end up starting Community Coalition for Substance Abuse and Prevention there in
Mm.
South Central. And so she came to me when she was kind of going over part of the fellowship. One of the courses, so to speak, that we took was the history of South Central, and she described the crack epidemic as being a public health crisis.
Right.
And I had never, up to that point, I had never heard about that epidemic, or I had never heard about that. I had never heard it characterized as that before.
Right. Crack and any drug controlled substance is typically uh, framed in a this is we have to be tough on crime type of situation.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
And so with her viewing it through the lens of public health, it was something that, and when you think about it, a disease that, for instance, public health crisis of COVID-19, we
Hmm.
couldn't get a handle on it, right?
Yeah.
Um, we didn't know what to do with it. Now, once people are moving around and they're becoming exposed to this thing, whatever that thing is, it could be crack, it could be fentanyl, it could be
Hmm.
COVID-19. How do we get a handle on it? Now,
Exactly.
I can appreciate that, and I can understand how that creates like this curiosity for you.
Definitely, definitely. So like it just really, because it was something that, affected my family and it changed the way that I viewed them. I looked at, you know, friends that I had in the community and, relatives that I had, and it just, I'm like, man, these are folks that we were angry at, that we judged, and these folks were in the middle of a public health crisis.
Right.
And so it made me step back. I mean, it was just like it was just like it just like my view of all of everything, just
Yeah.
society in general, just changed. It was like an awakening, enlightening period for me. And so it made me sit back and say, man, I called Dr. White, talked to her. I talked to Dr. Davis, another mentor I had at Tougaloo, and I said, hey, I think I want to, go ahead and try to pursue this career in
Yeah.
public health. So I go through the MPH program. You mentioned COVID-19. As I'm getting ready to graduate from the MPH program, in the middle of that program, like COVID hit. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting my degree in the midst of the pandemic. And one of the last kind of final projects you have to do, they have you intern with the organization. That organization ended up being the institute. And so that's when I met Dr. Melvin. And so she tasked me with creating a COVID-19 vulnerability index that she would use for her program to target,
Mm.
her interventions.
Right.
And so I'm at home, I'm stuck in the house, so my creativity was just, I didn't have nothing else to do. So, I
Yeah.
really, really took the project to heart, and she liked it. She was impressed with it. Used it to, for her program. She brought me in as an intern soon after, and then soon after that, brought me on as a full time, epidemiologist. So I just want to take a moment here, man, this for you to listen to the black women
Yeah. I heard it.
from Karen Bass to Dr. White to Dr. Melvin. I
Yeah.
mean, black women, man.
They don't.
Shout out to these black women, man, because I mean, literally along the way, and don't get me wrong, there were brothers as well, but just man, I've been blessed, man, to cross paths with some incredible black women, man, that
Yeah.
seen my potential, gave me opportunities after
Yeah.
opportunity, man. So grateful for those women, man. And they're, like I say, all of them are still mentors. Of course, I work with Dr. Melvin now, but all of them have been great mentors, man. And again, just introduced me to something that answered the questions that I always had. And I've always been passionate about community, so it just kind of combined all of that.
Yeah.
And now, man, just every day, just doing the work, and I look forward to every day I start. I'm ready to get to it every day, man. And I really love what I do every day. It's really, really a blessing for sure.
Now that's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing to be able to love what you do, and also have it provide for you. Hold on for one moment. My boys are tripping. I gotta be a dad right quick.
For sure, for sure.
All right.
Gotcha,
Um,
gotcha.
we are preparing for a road trip, and
Got you, got
you know how the bros get before they
you.
get
Yeah,
ready to
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. They pre-gaming.
Uh, no, I wanted to bring back to the conversation. You mentioned a brother from Ada, and um, I would say what stood out the most. You talked about him going to get that second opinion,
Mhm.
but I wanted to ask you a question about like we it's a thing it's an understood thing that a lot of men have anxiety about going to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I go to the doctor, my blood pressure is elevated
Yeah.
because my dad passed from some chronic illness, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mom, the same, well, lung cancer for her.
Gotcha.
But doc, some of the things that we've talked about that are shared on social media, like the Tuskegee experiment, as it
Mm-hmm.
relates to our people as a whole, I can understand why we have anxiety about um, interacting with healthcare professionals. But can you, from the public health perspective, talk to me about um, how parts of our healthcare system have historically underserved Black men,
Mm-hmm.
and how that plays a role in the way that we interact with it, and then also from in your professional opinion, what are some of the things that you guys have been doing or that should be done to address these types of occurrences and instances?
Um, so when I think about it, I can't help but even go as far back as slavery, and just thinking about just forced labor and the way that the Black man was minimized, to of course feeling less than human and being humiliated in front of the family and emasculation, all these different things. And then with the Tuskegee experiments, of course, a travesty, of course, but that definitely plays a part. And that came up last night, at the man cave. One of
Mm-hmm.
the brothers stood up, and he was very adamant, very passionate about, he asked that same question around, the mistrust and lack of trust, in the healthcare system. And something else, that there was a white physician there, and I appreciated him being willing to speak to that particular point of lack of representation in the healthcare industry.
Okay.
And that also plays a part in it, where you're not, your primary care provider may not be someone that looks like you.
Mm-hmm.
um there's a culture of, well, if I ain't dying, I ain't bleeding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
then, if I can throw a band-aid on it, I don't need to go. And so, there's a culture that's kind of developed from that. But that's probably the main factor. The main thing is the lack of representation. Um, Men not really having the forum to really speak about it or really talk about it. I think in the current times we in, this may be the the most comfortable men are, because it's something that, whether it's social media or
Yeah.
the socialization of our society, where Black men are being more, probably now more than ever, being encouraged to speak about your health. It's okay
Yes.
to not be okay, things of that nature. So I think it's helping. But there's still that lack of, and kind of going back to the brother at the brother from Ada chapter. He talked about how his primary care provider, um, was a white doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and that it took his daughter to come to him and say, "Dad, I know this physician. He's a Black physician. I think that you should just go see him.
Yeah.
Just go get another opinion."
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until he went to him, and instantly, when he kind of
Mm.
looked at the medication he was taking, he was able to tell him off the rip, like, "Hey, this
Hey,
medication here,
this does
you,
this
yeah,
to
because
us.
of our African ancestry,
Yes.
it
Yes.
has this effect on you." So one, you're taking the wrong medication. This medication, there have been no clinical trials for this medication amongst Black men. So this is the wrong medication. So, but again, it took his daughter to come to him to say that, and he's like,
Yeah.
he shouted out his daughter to say, hey, her coming to me really probably was the turning point, because
Yeah.
it was somebody I trust, and somebody I care about. When I talk to the youth and I talk to young folks, whether it's high school students, college age students, even some of the junior high school students, I always remind them of the power that they have, and that, don't, I know y'all on social media and stuff like that, but the power that you have is that are you have access to so much more information that your
Right.
parents and your grandparents may not have had access to. They probably don't really care for the music that you may be listening to, or they may still be trying to understand streaming and video games. There's a lane for that, for you,
Right.
for you to be successful. They may still be uneasy about that. But if you go to them and say, hey, granddaddy, hey, uncle, hey, pops, have you ever got a prostate screening?
Right.
Or hey, pops, what's your blood pressure? What's a healthy blood pressure supposed to be? And when I talk to them, I tell them, like, hey, go home and mention that, and
Yes.
look at how they react to it.
Mm-hmm.
If they hear from you, they may listen to you more than they may listen to their doctor, right?
That conversation has the space to happen in a home environment. And
Exactly.
that's why I wanted to make sure that I highlighted the curation of space that allows for Black men to talk about things such as prostate exams.
Hmm.
And I started getting prostate exams early on because of my dad
Hmm.
and him having, prostate cancer, right? Um, the I appreciate, and you shouted out, Dr. Melvin and the other women in your life. My time at the Health and Wellness Center was definitely one of the, not even one. I'll say Tougaloo period
Hmm.
was probably the healthiest I've ever been in my life.
Gotcha.
Like, I'm more sedentary now. Um, but being an employee of the Health and Wellness Center, having second graders and senior citizens on the hall every day. You got college students, everybody in between.
Hmm.
You got a fitness center down the hallway. It was just a healthy environment.
Yeah.
Um, I think when we start talking about, and I'm kind of getting into potentially what I see the Black Men's Health Equity Council um advising Mississippi cities, counties, municipalities.
Hmm.
How do you build communities that have the best interest of Black men at the core of whatever the mission and vision is of that city? Meaning that, all right, I'm not saying that it's exclusive to Black men, but Black men are a part of the mission and vision of our communities. Meaning, what are the things? Where are the spaces? Who are the people? Um, how do we curate experiences, create spaces for Black men to feel comfortable, to feel empowered? So the Man Cave, the Black Men's Health Equity Conference, how how are these things happening here, and then other places? How exactly should they go about? Let's say if this could be Natchez,
Hmm.
right? Natchez ain't Jackson,
Yeah.
but they deserve something like this, right?
Hmm.
How do we get to that?
I would
How do
say
we get to it?
I would say just really utilizing that those, being open minded, being not, unconventional, non-traditional method of going about it. And whether it's barbershops, men's ministries at churches,
Yeah.
you know, really taking the time to really sit back and say like where the men are. Um, if there are, if you know any black physicians, in those communities, um, any black men that may work for the health departments,
Yeah.
um, black psychologists, therapists, bringing those folks, to community settings, within the barbershops, within the churches, and with those spaces, who's ever leading those spaces, whether it's the barbershop owner or the pastor, really, really getting those entities to understand, like, hey, like, this setting, it may not be something you thought about, utilizing it for, but maybe, one Sunday after service or before service, maybe we have some nurses doing blood pressure checks at the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or when you coming in or you leaving out, hey brother, I know you about to go hang out and do the brunch thing with the family, but get your blood pressure checked. Take a
Yeah.
couple seconds. At the barbershops, what we've been able to curate there, and particularly in Cleveland, Mississippi, and shout out to the young bros, because those brothers, Orlando Trust, Achilles Lambert, we call him Big Mike, um, Caleb Carter.
Mikey.
Yeah, Caleb.
DJ Freakazoid and Mikey.
Yeah, so those brothers, and that's where it's like that mentorship aspect. It's bridge building.
Yes.
It's really connecting those generations, connecting that gap where you have the older brothers who are, in those age ranges where they're at risk.
Yeah.
But then also getting them to understand that, like, hey, you have the facility to curate this space or to
Right.
curate those conversations, and then empowering the young brothers to say, hey, whether it's your former high school or your church or your barbershop. Like, for example, when we go to the Delta, the barbershop that we work with, that's, Orlando Trust's uncle, right? The high school that we go to is like his former high school.
Right.
And so, and again, with me not being from Mississippi or from the Mississippi Delta, like when I first went there and I started talking, they're like, we know you're not from here, right? Like, we know you're not from Mississippi. We can tell you're not from Mississippi.
Yeah.
So at first there was some, because again, we're dealing with generations and generations of mistrust in the
Right.
healthcare system. So I could say, yeah, I'm an epidemiologist and such. And they like, okay, you came up, pulled up one time, but people pull up one time and we never see them again.
Yeah.
But now it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
And so now when I go up there, it's a welcome space. And so now
Right.
we're in talks of, partnering with another organization that does youth mental health training. So now we're
Okay.
getting ready to do, where the plan would be to train the barbers, have them help us connect us with other barbershops where we train the barbers get paid for the training,
Right.
and then they hold a training session where they're training their customers to say, hey, like, we're doing this youth mental health training, and this is just about being able to identify the
This
signs of
is
mental health
beautiful.
illness
Yeah.
amongst, middle school and high school students. And by you participating, for each person that they train, the barber would get, paid for it. So it's but that, again, it didn't happen overnight. It's been over time, but we go up there every month, so they see me every month.
Right.
So I go up there, they're like, hey man, we'll see you next month. And there have been times where, you know I'm up there, and you know the little homies then walked in. He got his Pooh Shiesty mask on. Uh, his waist is heavy. He got something heavy on his waist now.
Yeah.
But that's where that part where it's like and again and being a bridge builder and saying
I got you.
they not gonna listen to me. They, again, that's whatever his environment, whatever he's learned, whatever's going on, where he feels the need to be on that type of timing. It's about us letting him know, like, hey man, we got this health program going on, the Black Men's Health Equity Council, man.
Right.
We're talking about, vaping prevention, stuff like that. And again, we won't know how the young man is going to react to it because he's never had that conversation.
Right.
No one has ever had a conversation with him about, hey man, the ingredients in that stuff, man, can cause like irreversible lung damage.
Right.
Where he looked at it, he said, man, he looked at it. He said, all right, okay. So it may not change overnight, but it's putting the thought in his mind. But the one
My
thing
boy
that I
said,
know for
what?
sure, right? But the one thing I know for sure is he gonna need a fresh cut.
Right.
He gonna need an edge.
Oh, he coming back.
He coming back. So boom, we go there again. It's like he see me again. He say, "Oh man, you the dude was here last time." Yeah, man, I know I talked to you about the vaping before. Man, today I got some stuff on about condoms, man. We talking,
Right.
HIV, man. It's a real thing, and he go some information about this, man, just so you can learn about this. It's a
Right.
medication you could take that you don't got. It's not saying that you got it or nothing, but you can take this right here.
Right.
It's called PrEP, and you could take this, and it could help you just in case. The condom might break, anything like that.
Right.
And you with a young lady, and again, it's just having the and again, he's never heard of PrEP.
Right.
He's never, as far as he know, HIV is a death sentence. So it's like it's us talking to the older brother and saying, hey man, you can get that PSA blood test.
Right.
And that's an adequate screening. Say, what's a PSA? Oh, it's just a blood test, man. They give you a number, and based on that number, they can tell you whether or not you may be at risk for prostate cancer. Right. And so they don't gotta the first go-to ain't
that
my barber.
You ain't gotta do that. That ain't the first. Yeah.
One of the barbers said,
you ain't gotta get that finger.
He said, my doctor got 5 thumbs. Right. So again, it's my job is to go in there, be approachable.
Yeah.
Understand the culture of all the different age levels and know how to disseminate that information to where we can dispel some of these myths, give them the updates on the current 2025 technology advances in medicine, things like that, and we bring it to a community level. So to kind of, I know I said a lot there, but to answer your question, it's just about getting outside of the box, and we have to find a way to where we can have the conversation. And so even with the schools, going into the schools, the colleges, because in the college, those are young men, they're adult men, so really getting into those spaces, even with talking to the professors and to some of the teachers, some of the instructors, because they dealing with the kids every day. They may have a kind of an old school approach where they like, man, these kids is bad, and and stuff like that. But it's like, they may not be bad, they just again, they just haven't had the conversation, man. And the Mississippi Delta is such a rural place, rural area. Just really reminding them, like, man, my the woman I work for, the people I work with, some of these physicians are from the Delta. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're, where you're from and your location, your locale. This is a beautiful place. You guys, this is your home, and where you're at is a beautiful place. Be prideful of where you're from.
Exactly.
Understand the power you have and what you can do. So, just really, man, it's work, and it takes time, but we can get there, man. We can shift the culture, one community at a time.
I think you're definitely doing that. I think and we hinted at the combination of health and fitness with tech earlier through the mention of the aerial fitness camp. That camp is actually taking place in Jackson.
Gotcha.
I think we should, and I know that some of the breakout sessions and things, and that I know we're rounding up to that 10 o'clock hour, and I got to get ready to get ready for this road trip. Can you go over quickly some of the topics or the workshops and panels that will be a part of the conference, Black Men's Health Equity Conference, and then give the URL and everything so that folks can get there to register?
For sure, for sure. So this year's conference, the theme for this year is prevention, power, and progress. So prevention, speaking to those preventive steps you can take before you ever get sick, getting adequate rest, getting those health screenings, knowing your status, whether that's, what your blood pressure range is. If anybody that's sexually active is at risk, so getting those screenings so you know your status and the power that comes from that. Like that's a powerful thing. It gives you your power back. It puts you in control because
Yeah.
catching this stuff early is the name of the game, no matter what it is. Whether it's prostate cancer, HIV, any of these things, all of these things are 90% survivable, have a 90% survival rate if it's caught early. So, and progress is the part of passing that information and creating a generation, passing that information to the next generation to create a new culture and new generation of health. And of
Right.
course, our keynote speaker this year is going to be Mr. Roland Martin, award-winning journalist, very well-known brother. We're expecting him to deliver a very powerful keynote address, and we're going to have some of the most brilliant, well-known healthcare providers, therapists, public health practitioners, healthcare providers in the state of Mississippi and beyond. So some of the topics we'll be touching on is lung cancer prevention, learning, what treatment options. Again, all of this is about giving the most up-to-date
Right.
information in science and healthcare, and medicine. Of course, we're going to be touching on heart health,
Right.
circulatory health, things of that nature, mental health. Again, talking about how to deal with some of those traumas, how to recognize when your spouse, your children, your family member may be dealing with some mental health things, and also financial literacy. Really kind of going into again, be thinking outside the box and not limiting our communities on what information is available to them. Hey, we can invest in stocks too.
Right.
We can be real estate agents too. Even if you're not a real estate agent, getting into the real estate game, knowing how to get the most equity out of your home, things of that nature. So, those are some of the topics that we'll be kind of going over. Right now, registration is live. Seats are filling up fast. If you want to register, go to www.minority-institute.org. Again, that's www.minority-institute.org to register today. Registration ends July 31st. Again,
Okay.
seats are filling up really fast, y'all. We had a meeting this morning, and the registration, the seats are just filling up so quickly. So
That's
um,
beautiful.
definitely get that registration. Again, it's completely free. We'll be serving breakfast that morning, full course meal for the afternoon. So
Yes,
we're gonna
sir.
make sure you're gonna leave there well fed, and when you leave there, you will be able to leave there again knowing the top advancements and the latest in technology and healthcare and medicine. And again, this is for the Black man in Mississippi. Sometimes you're overlooked and forgotten about, but we have not forgotten about you, brothers. And this event is something that is specifically for you. The team
I love
I
it.
have a dream team of folks that are working on this thing. We meet weekly to put this thing together. And I have just a dream team that's putting this thing together, man. And they are curating this thing specifically for you. Mr. Roland Martin is on his way. He's looking forward to it. And so come join us, man. It's going to be a powerful event.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. This has been another episode of Nightcap Knowledge, but we want to make sure that you got all of the details. The Institute for the Advancement of Minority Health, Black Men's Health Equity Conference, Saturday, August 23rd, Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. Our keynote speaker Roland Martin. The admission is free. Go ahead and go register for this event. We've got the link in our comments. It is also tagged in the description of this video. Warren, we appreciate you, bro.
Thank you.
Shout out to 03 Kenosha checking in, tapping in, man. We appreciate the bros for one, supporting us, but also continuing to be consistent in being examples of excellence. So Warren, we thank you. Kenosha, we thank you. Like, you guys are y'all make me proud, y'all motivate me, and I know that we are pushing in the right direction. We are, as our chapter bro Lawrence Guillot said, we are doing the work to make Mississippi and our country a better place. And I know by doing so, we will always get to where the money resides.
For sure.
We're gonna get to
Wait.
one more time, gentlemen. Give it up for Warren Jones, Black Men's Health. We're talking Black Men's Health, y'all. Black Men's Health Equity Conference, Saturday, August 23rd. We'll see y'all next week for another episode of Nightcap Knowledge. I am DJ George Chuck, and we will be heading to South Africa January 19th through the 31st, 2026. You need some more info, you can definitely go to the Black with No Chaser website. We'll see y'all next week. Shout out to everybody that went to go vote in the municipal elections. Nightcap Knowledge, y'all. Let's get it. Peace.
Thank you.